Hello, everybody, and good morning. And I am so sorry we are late today. I had some technical difficulties with my microphone, but we are here to talk about the Netflix miniseries Godless. And I'm here with some great friends, Steve and Brandy, and author Jeff Lane. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
I am Steve. Steve talks books, and I think Stacy's trying to tell us something with all these technical difficulties, but we just can't seem to take a hint. So we're still here. And
I'm Brandy, married to Steve. Just hanging out with everybody. That's my thing.
And I'm Jeff Lane, author of speculative thrillers and other gobbledygook.
Okay, well, let's get down to talking about this show. First, I guess we'll start with some non-spoiler thoughts. Steve, what did you think of the show?
I'm not the biggest fan. They didn't talk a different language. There's no subtitles. There was no time travel. There was no psychological thriller element. I am disappointed. No, seriously. I wasn't the biggest fan. I think it tried to do too many things, and it didn't do any of them really very well. And there's only so much you can do with the Western that hasn't been done before. So I try to look past that, but I think it was trying to do too much. So, yeah, that's my non-spoilery thoughts.
I thought it was okay. I was asking Steve, when are we going to watch Godless? We're going to start it today, and he looks at me and he says, we've already watched it. I guess when it first came out, we watched it, but I totally forgot. So for a minute, I was like, really? We watched it? So I had to think. And then we definitely have to rewatch it because if I don't even remember that we watched it in the first place, So then I was thinking it can't be that good if I didn't even remember we watched it. But then as we were rewatching, things were coming back to me. And I thought it was okay. It was good. It wasn't like... I think it was just entertainment. There wasn't any like deep, we're always looking for the deeper meaning in everything.
Yeah.
It was good though.
It is a bad sign if you didn't remember that you had watched it already. Yeah, I agree. I think we've been spoiled lately by some very deep. We've got to unravel it. We've got to look for the clues, and this wasn't that. This was a little bit more straightforward. Once you learned the characters and once you kind of learned the setup, you were just along for the ride, waiting for it to unfold, waiting for the trap to spring. And it was a bit of a slow burn, and I usually like that. This is probably I could have used a couple more peaks of excitement in maybe some of the middle episodes, but a pretty satisfying ending in general. And yeah, it was like Steve said, entertainment, but not like I gotta lean forward and pay attention.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. Excuse me. I didn't like it. There were some things that I did like, which I ended up fast forwarding through most of the last episode, if that tells you what my thoughts were. I was bored at the first few episodes, and the only excitement was just gory violence. And I didn't connect with any of the characters, except for maybe a couple of them. And there were so many elements to the story that I felt were unnecessary. Like, we just need to check some boxes here. And I didn't care for how that was done, but we'll get into that when we talk about spoilers. So it was not one of my favorite shows, but I agree with Jeff. We have been spoiled. I think there's still some things to talk about here, but it's definitely not like the other shows. Even Sherlock had more depth to it than this. And many people would say, that's just a, great mystery TV show, but there was way more to that show than here. There's not a whole lot below the surface with this show. Well, anybody who's on the chat, did you watch this, or are you just joining to see our lovely faces?
that's the case, sorry. I should probably-
Yeah. Yeah, it's too early to be lovely. So I don't know how you guys want to do this. There were 7 episodes. I think we'd be here forever if we talked about each one. Do we want to just kind of talk about the different plot lines? So, you know, you have this town where all of, or majority of the men have died in a mining accident. And so the women are having to survive mostly on their own. So what did you think about that aspect of the story? Oh, Saf.
Yeah.
Saf says,
Aw.
I'm obsessed with y'all. Seeing you everywhere this weekend. Yeah,
You have to
we're
join
almost
us.
have live shows, one of us, almost every weekend. So you can almost always find us somewhere on somebody's channel on the weekend.
You have to
I'm
join
glad
us
you
every night,
enjoy
man.
that, though.
I'm just a Klingon. I just cling on to other people's channels.
Oh, no.
Me
That's
too.
what you do.
That's
You
me.
don't have your own channel, but you are not a Klingon.
Do you have any
You
idea
don't
the
have
kind
any
of
ridges.
the kind of street cred we get for having an author on?
I know,
It's
right?
it's like a rapper getting shot. Like, it gives us a lot of street cred. So it's like, wow, he has an author on his channel. Stacey has an author on. That's so cool. It's like, wow, she must be really fucking
And a good author, not just any author.
yeah, good
Ah.
author. Exactly.
Thank you.
Very good.
So I'm going to go ahead and say it to Saf right now since she's here. Saf, you've got to read one of Jeff's books. I have personally read One Way, and I loved it. It's kind of a sci-fi thriller about time travel. Steve and Brandy have also read his Champions saga. He's got 2 of the 3 books out for that. The first one being This Paper World. I will be reading that soon, hopefully. And yeah, you got to go check out Jeff. He does the audiobooks for all of his books as well. So where can she find that? I can't remember the website.
The audiobooks are on most podcatchers, so Apple Podcast, Stitcher, TuneIn. LibriVox is one of my favorites, because it's full of free books, so you can just go listen.
Okay. I can't remember where I got it from, but the One Way was excellent.
Yeah, I read One Way and listened to. I did both on the Champion Saga. We're reading the 3rd book now, and I listened. Once I started listening to the audiobook, I couldn't go back to reading the book because I wanted to hear Jeff scream like, "Oh!" His,
Funny
his
accents.
Asian accent. Yeah. So yeah, good stuff.
Awesome. Okay, I'm sorry I digressed, but I wanted to make sure everybody reads your stuff because you're a great human, but you're also a pretty excellent author as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So what did you guys think of the women being almost all by themselves there in that little mining town?
I liked it. I think that's kind of fun for me, like as a chick, you know. I thought, you know, oh cool, this is gonna be us watching these, you know, chicks or girls, or is that a bad thing to say, chick? I don't know.
I think the more PC term is broad. We call them broads nowadays.
All these broads, and it was just fun. Like I thought, like their relationships with each other were good, but they also did the girl thing with each other, where they kind of, you know, butt heads on different issues, and but they just had a great amount of pride and, you know, keeping everything going, and I liked that. I liked that some of them got away from wearing skirts and corsets and stuff, and that issue. It was just that part of it was just entertaining for me, but they still needed a couple of the dudes around. So, I mean, they had Whitey. That was their big protection.
And Steph, yes, there are at least one lesbian.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's some
Actually,
representation.
there's more than
Two.
one. Obviously, there's more than one. 2.
Technically
there's at least 2. Yeah,
Yeah,
That
if I
we know
have
of.
just one.
Yeah, exactly. She'd be lonely. This show would have been a lot better if it would have just focused on LaBelle, the town, and the struggle of the women and what happens after the men die. That would have been a whole lot better than what they went to. They tried to do too many different storylines. If it would have been about the town and focused on them more, I think it would have been a lot more entertaining. And by the way, something that just boggles my mind is, why did all the women follow the men as they went into the mine? Is that like an everyday thing that they all follow them and they'll like see them off every day, and then when they die, they were all standing there, or when the mine collapsed.
Yeah, that was
was
weird.
strange. Like that was
My
way
wife
too,
does not
like,
follow me to work every day. That's
Yeah.
I
when I go to
tried.
the cubicle
I
mine.
tried. But
She's like pushing me out the door every day. But yeah, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but the end, it really bothers me when people are like normal everyday people or like struggling to survive, and then they turn into Rambo and they get shot in the stomach, and they're like, nah, no big deal, and they're just like, infinite ammo
Yeah.
cheats at the end, and it's like, come on, you try and keep it grounded, and then at the end it just kind of gets like this action movie. Everybody turns into James Bond and Jason Bourne all of a sudden. It's like,
yeah,
Yeah,
that
there's-
was weird. Oh,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Brandy.
Oh no, I was just thinking about that one lady that couldn't. She accidentally shot the gun, and as somebody that has tried to shoot a gun, it's not like you don't just like mess up once and then all of a sudden you're like a pro at it and you're able to sit in the window, and so it was really unbelievable for me, especially as a girl trying to learn that sort of I guess I don't know if it's a hobby or that skill. She just like she accidentally shot it, and then all of a sudden, then the next scene, she's at the window, like just aiming at everybody, and
Yeah,
it just
it's
was-
not even just that it's hard, especially a large revolver like that, but that you're not going to be able to aim at anything. So
no way.
the fact that they were just taking them down left and right, no.
Yeah, that is one of the kind of tropes you have to rise above in most westerns. That handguns are not really the most accurate. Once you get beyond 10, 15 yards, you're pretty lucky to hit the broadside of a barn. But in most westerns, we've got the 6-shooter, gunslinger
Yeah.
pistol, and they're always splitting a fly's hair at 50 yards or whatever. But you do also have the infinite ammo, and you barely ever. You did see him reload a little bit in this one, so there was some of that. But oftentimes, in a lot of westerns, you see him fire off 2 or 3 and then reholster it. Well, what if they needed those 2 or 3 again? The next time they face someone, like you don't see a lot of reloads. And this always bothered me. They would give the war cry, and then they'd cock the gun and then proceed to aim and shoot. Like if you're gonna break cover, have that gun already cocked maybe. Like go ahead and chamber around before you break cover and scream your war cry. Just saying. I mean, I've never been in a gunfight, but that's what I would do.
Yeah.
but you do write about them though in books.
I can imagine them.
So this
Basically,
was actually one of my concerns when I saw what the movie was going to be about. I was like, oh, here they're going to go and turn these chicks into, these superhumans. And you see this a lot in media where women can't be strong unless they're like a man. And I don't I don't agree with that. I think that women have their own strengths. Now, you did see the women struggle. So it's not like, oh, my men left and now, I could do everything. Especially with Alice, you see, she loses her husband and she doesn't know how to break the horses. She's having to dig a well. She's struggling to survive. And I liked that. I liked that they showed that, that she was strong because she was trying to do things that are outside of her comfort zone. She didn't have to be great at it to be a strong woman. But there were some women in the town that also struggled. And then you come to this firefight and all of a sudden they're amazing at everything. And I'm just like, no. And it, in my opinion, it belittles women when you do that. And you say, hey, women can't be strong unless they can do everything a man can do. Shoot in a firefight, fight, I hate movies where women are taking punches in the gut and they're, shake it off. It's like, no, sorry. That doesn't happen like that. But anyway, that was one of the things I was worried about in here. And they did do it, but not nearly as bad as I expected. They had some, I don't know what is going on. I got a frog in my throat. I can't remember, was it Maggie? Maggie was the one that, yeah. I liked her character, how she was kind of the feminist of the group, right? She's like, hey, you know what? You're not putting me in a box and saying I'm nothing more than a child rearing woman. But she also had more to her than I'm going to wear pants now and I'm going to be a man. I loved her character. I really did. She was funny. Even though she didn't want to be put in that box, she was very motherly. And I really enjoyed that. So there were some characters in here that I did like, and some plot lines with the women that I liked. But then there were others where I was like Brandy was saying, you have this woman who obviously doesn't know how to handle a gun, and then the next day she's. I just was like, okay. That's why I fast forward through most of that shooting scene. I was like, oh, whatever. I roll. Is this over yet?
The last episode almost turned into a comedy because they would have these one-liners and then they cock the gun and like let them come, or like cock the gun, and like it's come on. And I almost wondered if they went overboard with the gunfight just to poke fun at westerns.
Maybe.
Was that like I had to, because I was laughing the whole way through the last episode because it was so ridiculous. But I started to wonder, maybe this is on purpose and they're just like poking fun at westerns and gunfights and stuff. So I don't know. Maybe.
I think it didn't know what it wanted to be. I think all along it was some of those things, but it never, pardon the pun, pulled the trigger to go all the way. So the trailer you said, you think is this town of women is going to be like going to have to do on its own and defend itself. But no, through the whole thing, you've got Whitey, who's pretty capable with his guns. You've got Sheriff Bill, he's going blind, but he's on a journey, and you've got Roy, who, Superman can do no wrong. So you've got these men, so they're not completely on their own. And come to find out, Bill and Roy come to town, and end up half saving the day as well. Though there were certainly a couple of the women that had key roles in the big gunfight as well. But it didn't. I think it sort of thought it knew what it wanted to be, and it didn't go all the way with any of those things. And I think that's where we're, if they wanted to be funny, like the last two episodes had some great comedy beats, specifically around Maggie, like the scene with her in the painter ladies, the German painter lady's house, when the Pinkerton detective arrived. Like that was so funny, but dark humor. She shoots him, just things like that. In the last episode, had a lot of comedy beats, but that wasn't consistent throughout. Like it didn't, and there was even a little wisecracking between Roy and Sheriff Bill. When they came upon the mine folks that had stolen their horses. Like really funny, but they never went all the way with it. And then, like I said, the conceit of the women having this being completely women on their own didn't go all the way with that. Was Whitey bumbling, or was he not? First you set him up as this kind of dopey detective that kind of wants to be something. He kind of smells. He doesn't take a bath too often. But then when those hooligans are out in the street causing problems, he's capable. So but then you think, okay, so Whitey's going to have a big thing to play in this, and he's going to rally all the old Buffalo soldiers from Blackdom, and then that ends like that. So it just never paid off in the ways you wanted it to be, but yet it wasn't one of those subvert your expectations cleverly, like these will do.
Yeah,
and there were other things like there was one thing that's a good example is this John Doe character who happened to be one of the only men that survived, and they make this huge deal out of him, and where did he come from and who is he, but we don't know because he was in the mine and now he doesn't have a memory, and then they're waiting for a preacher, and all of these different little things never amounted to really anything. Like we never found out who this John Doe guy was. It was just fine, but they made such a big deal out of it for a little while that my daughter had all these theories going in her head. Okay, maybe he's this guy, or maybe he's the preacher that came to, and then he didn't get a chance to tell everybody he's the preacher. I mean, we look for all these well, who's this going to turn out to be? And then nothing, So there were little things like that here and there too. Like the whole thing that Frank was a preacher. I kept thinking, oh, they're building this church. He's going to come into their town and pretend to be the new preacher and get him that way. I mean, no.
Yeah, and Frank's premonition about how he was going to die. We never understood what he thought that was going to be. It turned out not to be that. Of course, my big payoff is I thought the payoff was going to be Frank would find himself in a situation where he'd go, oh crap, this is it. Like now seeing the way I died. But nope, just gunfight, regular old gunfight. And this isn't how I was supposed to die. Oh, you're wrong. Boom.
Yeah.
You saw wrong.
And then you kind of felt like he was, because he started taking off his clothes and stuff. Like, okay, this is it. This is how I die. But then he says, no, I've seen my death. This isn't how I die. So that was very weird.
What did all of you think about Frank's character? Because it seems like they tried to make him this big, bad, ruthless, just evil, and then they tried to make him sympathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did
I
not.
didn't get that.
I was confused with him because, yeah, he basically slaughters his whole town, including the women and children. And then he goes to that smallpox house, and it's like, we're going to stay here and take care of these people. Like, what?
But
Yeah,
then he killed them all.
No, I
Did
think
he?
they died.
I think they all died.
I took it that they just died naturally.
Oh, I thought.
Yeah, then they just, because he let them, they were going to burn it, and then they said, no, we're not going to burn it.
Oh.
He made them dig graves.
So I did like Frank for that aspect, that there was some complexity to him. He was a madman, bad guy, villain, but he was also a preacher, and I think he thought he was sticking to some of the tenements of his faith and going in and ushering to the sick and rescuing poor orphan boys. But of course, he was doing that to his own ends because he would bring these people into his gang. So there was complexity, and then there was just the craziness of the whole symbolism of the bees. I don't know what the bees represented, but his finger pointing to the town on his arm that he carried around. But then he burned the arm. It was just really inconsistent, and maybe he was meant to keep us off balance because he himself was off balance. But great performance by Jeff Daniels.
Mhm.
Really well executed, but just some swerves in the way the character was presented.
Yeah. It was almost like they wanted you to feel some level of sympathy for him, or to believe that he was redeemable because, oh, look what he's doing here. But then he takes those two guys in, the twins. I think they were twins. And at first you think he's being sympathetic to them because their family's been slaughtered. And then you realize, no, he knows that they killed the family, including the baby. Oh my God, that was just like, really, did you have to put that in there?
I know.
I felt like there was a lot of that, though, like unnecessary things that were just there to say, hey, this is hardcore. Like,
yeah.
But why?
When we saw that scene, I think Brandy looked at me and said, "Oh, Stacey's gonna hate that scene." Or
well, we were talking about. You were asking me, does it change the violence level? And I was telling her, no, it's gonna get probably. It's either gonna stay the same or get worse. But yeah, and then he also that whole thing with that family and whose wife is gonna lay down in my sheets with me tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And it just was gratuitous at some point,
It was there was a lot of tension in it, and that's when I was probably the most afraid of Frank. It was throughout that whole scene, and is he gonna kill the husbands? Is he gonna kill the kids? So there was a lot of tension that built up in that scene. But it's like a great puzzle piece, and a puzzle that just doesn't always mesh well together.
And they could have eliminated a lot of stuff. Like I kind of felt like they said, no, we're going to make a Western, so we have to have Native Americans. We have to have
check.
We have to have African Americans, check. And
check.
None of them served really a purpose. Like none of them really, they were just there. and
Mhm.
it didn't move any, it didn't, and the whole thing about him being a ghost at the end, like
I couldn't tell if he was. I thought Roy was messing with him, but then at the end they show his shadow being back. Like that was some kind of like he had a shadow. So was it a ghost? That was, I don't know. I couldn't tell if that was a joke or if that was real. Like, are they poking fun at that whole? I don't know. I don't know. That was confusing
Yeah.
to me.
I think it could have been. There was a lot of potential here for them to be clever, for them to have it. It's almost like they had two writers. One was like, "We're going to do this," and the other's like, "We're going to do this," and then they kind of met in the middle, and neither of them really succeeded. And it felt like that. Every episode, I was like pulled in one direction, and then the next episode was like, "Well, what? Okay, we're going this way now," and I mean, I was probably after episode 4, I was like, I don't really care what happens, except for Alice. I wanted to see. I liked that Roy was becoming a father figure to her son and was teaching him how to take care of the horses and get over his fear. That was like the only thing I liked, the only plot line I liked about the whole show. And then, I shipped them, right? I was like, yeah, these two, she's going to go to California with them. And no.
Because she always talked about leaving.
Yeah. It's like, here's your opportunity to leave.
She like settles for, I forget his name.
The sheriff.
The sheriff. It's like,
and I felt like they just kind of threw that whole. The sheriff actually was the one that saved her and him and his wife, just so that at the end, when she stays with the sheriff, you kind of feel okay. Okay, I feel okay with this. She didn't go with Roy and she stayed with him because he saved her. But it just was like a real quick thing that I felt like they threw in so that later when she stays with him,
it makes sense.
Makes sense to us.
That whole romance thing just didn't. There was no. It's like didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Any of the romance with Alice. Alice didn't need romance at all for the story. I don't. I mean, it's her. I guess the connection with Roy and him becoming, but it seems for her character to I don't know. It just and then she like settled, and Roy leaves, and she would rather be with him, but she like settles for the sheriff, who's like a kind of a joke. Yeah, I don't know. It just.
Do we find why he's a coward? Too?
I never got that either. I think, but
because he doesn't shoot.
Because he can't.
Because see. Maggie says at the end, she's like, he doesn't shoot because he can't see. And she tells them all he's not a coward. He just doesn't go shooting his gun around because he can't see. And you're like, oh, well, we knew he wasn't a coward because we've been following him, and he obviously is not a coward. But I think that's when she finally was just like, shut up, you bitches.
And how is Alice so white when she digs like wells and does all this work?
I know.
She's like, how is she so pale?
He was like, why is her skin so white when she's outside all the time?
She's like, I don't know about you guys, but I spend like half an hour outside and I'm like, 4 shades darker. And she looks outside and she turns like 4 shades darker. She didn't have to go outside.
I know.
Like,
I'm red as soon as I walk outside.
What's going on? And something I'm not sure if you guys noticed. I may have noticed because it was filmed in Santa Fe, so I'm familiar with the terrain and everything. But something that I noticed that they used a lot of the same areas to film different scenes. They would just use different angles, and I think it was the same area, but they kept using different angles to make it look like a different place. But it was really the same place. They were just shooting different angles from it. It was like these tall.
I didn't catch that.
And I
was going to ask you
because it looks familiar.
I was going to ask you if that looks like where you guys live, because it was beautifully shot. That was one of the strong. What I thought, there were some great sweeping vistas and the long shots with the horse and going through and all that. There was that country looks very beautiful.
Yeah, that's where I go. I was looking for my mountain bike trails while they were.
Yeah, it's always fun for us because there's a lot of things that are filmed here because we have Netflix here, and so it's always fun for us when we know something's filmed here because we'll sit there and Oh, that do you reckon? Doesn't that look like that one place? Or, we'll try to guess where they are. But that's fun. But I mean, it just didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know where it was filmed?
I think a lot of it was filmed in Santa Fe, from what I read.
Yeah, which
up
is
north.
just like right north of us. Yeah.
It did look like there were some portions that are filmed in the bosque just close
Yeah.
by here. There were some places that next to the river, there's these big cottonwood trees, and it looks like some scenes were filmed there, especially in the last episode when they were writing, like the last few, I don't know, 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, because we live right off the Rio Grande River, like a mile away from it. So we know that area, and so when we see the forest next to the river, we're just like, that looks like it's by the river.
We brought
Like,
our
we're
bikes
just right
to there,
down our street, right down the street from us. So it's fun to recognize that vegetation that we always see here.
Oh, that is cool.
Did you guys ever watch Deadwood on
Yes.
HBO?
Yeah.
That's another problem with this. I've seen Deadwood.
Yeah. I felt like this was like a Deadwood light. And whereas Deadwood leaned into the grittiness and leaned into the realism, so that when we did get some of the action scenes, they were less Hollywoodized in Deadwood, but I felt the payoff was more. Like you were like, oh, whenever Seth Bullock would step up and have to fight someone, it was a more realistic fight, but you were more satisfied than this big giant shootout at the end.
Yeah, they almost avoided it in Deadwood, and it was, I think it was longer, so they had more time to develop storylines. This seemed a little rushed.
Yeah.
And like they were trying to cram, because it was a limited series, they were trying to cram all these things into the 7 episodes that they did it in, and it felt that way.
So I got pulled in by the trailer. This was my pick. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Jeff.
I didn't totally hate it. And
there's some good parts to it.
I was thinking, man, we're going to watch it again. I didn't even remember it. But watching it again, I remembered everything, but I didn't remember the ending. So I was wondering if it was one of those ones we gave up on. But
No,
he says we watched it. I didn't remember the ending at all. And I actually really liked the ending because I like it when it's, when they don't she doesn't end up with Roy. I kind of like that. I didn't like who she ended up with, or that she didn't. I wanted her to go with him, but at the same time, I like for something not to go the way I want it to.
Yeah.
Weird like that.
I was rooting for Whitey and Louise too, but also didn't go the way.
I was so disappointed in how they chose to kill him off. That was another one of those, oh, we want to shock you. You think that he's going to, be a big part of this gunfight. Nope. And I just, like you were saying, it wasn't to subvert expectations in a clever way. It was just, it's kind of like those mystery novels where they give you absolutely no clues all the way through, or they give you all these clues and they totally go in the opposite direction. It's like, that wasn't clever. None of those clues meant anything. They were literally all red herrings. You never once gave me any clues to what was happening. And I don't like that. And that's how this was. It's like, come on. So anyway, I was disappointed. And you know what? I have to say something to Steve. You were saying yesterday about how Stand By Me would never get made today because of the swearing. But what the heck did I watch this show?
Well, no, I think a story with kids swearing the way that they swore.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the main thing, is just the children, the kid actors swearing like that I don't know if it would happen today. So I don't know if that movie would get made today the same way that it was made in '86. But no, there's plenty of movies that are awful. But
this was awful. And then him sitting there and talking about how those Mormons had killed. When I say he, Frank was sitting there talking about, basically how he was orphaned while he's got this little kid sitting on his lap. So thinking about that kid as an actor sitting there listening to this story, that's not a story that I want my kid hearing at 9. So I was just like, what parents decided, hey, I'm going to put my kid on this guy's lap while he talks about his family being murdered. And
yeah, I think when the kids are actively participating in the swearing, it's a whole nother level. I think that's what it is.
And the
So,
smoking.
Saf says that the actors won Emmys for Godless.
Was great acting, I
Yeah,
thought.
the
Rick
acting
Daniels
was
did a lot.
done well. The writing is what I would say was.
I
Not
thought
so good.
Michelle Dockery was. I love Downton Abbey, so I was all about seeing her in something else. I thought she was
Which one was
great.
she?
I liked
Alice.
Alice, yeah. And then Maggie, love that actress. I
Yeah.
saw her in Nurse Jackie years ago. I just love her as an actress. She's great. They were great. It was great actors.
From the material they were given, they did the most
Yeah.
they could with it, I think.
Yeah.
Roy even, and the whole learning to read struggle. I liked that. I mean, I thought it was believable. He didn't know how to read, and I was great acting.
Yeah, I think probably Maggie was on the top of my list. Frank, just being the weird bad guy that's
Yeah,
keeping you on your toes. I did like Whitey. I thought, it was a lot. There was a lot to explore with his character, and he's just one of those. I think it was Thomas Brody Sanger. Is that the name of the actor? He's the little kid from Love Actually.
Yeah.
Game of
Oh,
Thrones.
I knew he looked familiar.
yeah. It was in Game of Thrones. Bran's friend that could warg with Brand, remember that?
Yeah, he
They were
knew
going.
the spirits, or
He had the sister.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. And then he was in, I think, Maze Runner too. So he's been in a lot, and he's got such a unique look that when for the first episode or so, I was like, wait, is that him? Is that not him? And I had to look it up on IMDb. So the fact that he's kind of overcome kind of iconic roles and iconic, like a pretty recognizable face, and kind of meld into that role was, I thought he did a really good job.
And Stacey, we know you have to run, so did you want to give our?
Yeah, so if you guys were going to give this a rating, what would you rate it, Steve?
2.
I'd give it a 3 just because of the actors and the beautiful scenery, and I did like some of the story, so I'd give it a 3. I watched it twice too, so I'm invested.
You were tricked into watching it twice.
I didn't realize until I looked it up and I was like, oh, we've seen that.
Yeah, but we got to show it to the kids now that they're older, and my daughter really enjoyed it. Which she's super critical of everything, so she liked it. My son was just like, but
And Jeff?
I'd say three pistol shots out of a 6-shooter.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it was well executed technically. I think the cinematography was good, the sound design was good. I always love good sound design in a Western. You hear the clip clop of the horse and the creak of the leather and the click of the gun, like that. If you don't have a Western with good sound design, what are you watching? So I like that, and you're right. Some of the performances were good. I just think it was inconsistent story, and either too long or too short for what they were trying to do, and didn't really stand out as something clever or new or exciting that we hadn't seen before, or breaking new ground.
I feel bad giving this a 2, but I also have to. So a 2 for me is I didn't like it, but I could see there were some things I could see why other people might. There were some aspects of the story that I enjoyed, but as a percentage, it was small compared to 7 episodes. And it didn't succeed for me, where the things that I was hoping to happen, almost every single thing that I was hoping would happen didn't happen. And I just felt like there was a lot of gratuitous violence. I don't have a problem with violence if it serves a purpose. So I understood some of the violence, maybe in the beginning, in order to build up who Frank was, the town of Creed. But then there was a lot of extra stuff that I didn't really understand. Like it was just there to, rival, a Game of Thrones type. And that's exactly what it felt like. Hey, we're going to do these things because everybody was so impressed with how Game of Thrones killed off characters, so we're going to do that. That's what the Whitey thing felt like. but it was for no purpose. I mean, there was a purpose for why George R.R. Martin killed off certain characters. They led to a change that, took the story to another direction. Whitey's death served no purpose whatsoever. So anyway, I could say you can criticize it all day long. I was impressed with myself that I actually finished it. Now, like I said, I fast forwarded through most of the last episode, especially the 15 minutes of Roy traveling across the land. I was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
That much.
I kept thinking we were going to finally meet his brother as an
Right.
adult. It was just the ocean there at the end.
So much blue.
We're in the ocean. We don't know. Yeah. We don't know where he was.
But anyway, I'm sorry that this wasn't a better movie for all of us, but we're going to have, we still have a great conversation, even if we don't all like it. So that's what's great about this.
Yeah, there was
group.
great conversation just even in our house about it. So I appreciate it for that, So.
Well, that's great. I am looking forward to next month. So we will be watching Dracula, which is also a Netflix miniseries. I think there's only 3 episodes of that, so won't be nearly as, if it's bad, we won't waste as much of our time. So those of you who are still watching, if you want to join us for next month's TV series, it will be Dracula on Netflix, and we will be having that discussion on the 30th of October. We will have it at 2:30, which will be right after our Dracula book discussion. So I don't know, Jeff, if you're going to be able to join us for that. I hope you will. I don't know if you're a fan of Dracula or not, but
I've never read the book, so this could be a good excuse to.
Yes, and I mean, it's the classic vampire story, right? All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you for you guys who are on the chat and have watched, and join us for our next one. Goodbye.
Bye.